Hello everyone, it's so good to be here yet again. Last night I got to see Anora, a film that I was very much looking forward to. It's one of the most anticipated films of the year for a couple of reasons. Well, for starters, I've been aware of Sean Baker for quite a while. In fact, it seems every year I'm bumping his films higher and higher on my to-watch list, but I still have yet to see a single one. I think I'll be starting with the Florida Project, but I'm also very curious about Tangerine and Red Rocket. But no man, to come back to present day, this film is hot off its win at the Cannes Film Festival. It won the Palme d'Or, and yes, this is the fourth consecutive Palme d'Or win for Neon, so good on them. In any case, clearly there's a lot of hype surrounding this film, and I had to check it out instantly when it came out in cinemas. So to go over a brief synopsis without getting into too much detail, this is the story of Anora, who prefers to be called Annie. She's working as an exotic dancer, and on the side also seems to be doing a bit of prostitution. So in any case, throughout her profession, she meets Ivan, who is the son of a Russian oligarch, so this kid is absolutely loaded with cash. Their casual acquaintance pretty much snowballs into something bigger much faster. In fact, before you know it, they end up getting married in Las Vegas. So there really is this rags to riches kind of Cinderella story going on here, but it's also underlined with this genuine sense of tragedy all at the same time, especially once the family learns about this surprise marriage. Yeah, that honeymoon phase was doomed to end at one point in time, obviously, and the transition is quite jarring, especially with one of the most epic home-wrecking scenes I've seen in quite a while. God damn, that whole sequence is electrifying and just features high-wire performances from everyone involved. So yes, the beginning of the film in that honeymoon phase is quite wild and explicit, plenty of partying, sex and drugs, and yes, there's a lot of sex, so this is very much a rated R film. If you are a prude to sexuality, maybe you should be warned ahead of time, but I'll be honest, the sexuality is probably one of the elements that I'm least interested in this film, because I just got so invested in some pretty superb character development in the film. You will embark on quite the emotional roller coaster ride with this film, and it will provide you with some genuinely interesting and powerful tonal shifts throughout the entire experience. Though in many ways this is very much an exciting, fun, and loud film, there's this constant undercurrent of this greater emotional depth that is pretty much underlining everything, and it just keeps on layering and layering until the very end of the film, and that ending, chef's kiss. And also, it is a surprisingly hilarious film. So I won't go into too much detail, but me being a Slavic, there is one cultural element that I thought was particularly hilarious. So there's a character in the film at one point, got his ass kicked a little bit, he's looking for an ice pack, but he can't find one. So the closest thing he could find was this frozen pack of pelmeni, which are basically these pierogies. That is the most hilarious and Slavic replacement for an ice pack that I could have thought of. Really endearing to me personally. But beyond that, there's so many crazy moments of explicit language, and speaking of the language, I really love how the film just weaves in between English, Russian, and a bit of Armenian too. There's a lot of crazy things that are said in this film, and the whole language melting pot aspect of it just further adds more chaos to it. And speaking of the chaos, there's so many arguments that are just absolute riots in this film. There's so many moments where literally four people, if not more, just shouting over each other all at the same time. But in terms of the filmmaking aspect of it, it never felt messy in terms of the dramatic readability of what is going on in the scene. It strikes a really interesting balance of that. And I would say that it further demonstrates this very dynamic and authentic feeling dialogue that doesn't feel overly scripted. This is a remarkably varied and dense dramatic experience. There's quite a lot of conflicting emotions jumbled all into one within a single scene. You might be experiencing comedy and euphoria, while at the same time this chaos and confusion and horror. And there are other moments that are even more remarkable to me, of this sense of victory and independence, while also simultaneously having this heartbreak imbuing those moments. Once again, it's a delicate balancing act that other filmmakers I think would totally drop the ball on, but Sean Baker, the cast, and the crew just totally ride the line and just create a really nuanced and deep dramatic experience. And I think that really just speaks to the quality of the screenwriting and acting. And speaking of the acting, Mickey Madison, who plays our protagonist, Anora, of course, is absolutely superb in her role. I really admire how she imbues her character with this strength and independence that gets challenged frequently throughout the whole film. But she's not just this indestructible protagonist, she has quite a lot of vulnerabilities, and I really appreciate how she also delivers a lot of nuance and grace in those moments. Truly a superb performance, not just from her, but from the entire cast. Honestly, from top to bottom, these are dynamite performances. But going into this film, I think everyone kind of expected Mickey Madison to just knock this out the park. With a brief glance at the trailer, you can kind of feel a mile away that there's a lot of passion put into that performance. But there is one acting role in particular that was a major surprise for me, and kind of one of the biggest highlights of the film for me. I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to rob you of the experience of discovering it for yourself, but the actor who plays Igor I think is absolutely sensational. What I love about his performance is that there's a lot of unspoken info that is translated to us, either in the minute nuances of his gestures, the way he looks in the situation, or even how he's framed in the composition of the scene. So speaking of composition and framing, the cinematography is super effective, though in some very subtle ways that might not necessarily hit you as hard on first glance. Now that I reflect on the film after having having seen it. There's a moment that really stuck out in my mind. There's a moment where Anora's given a scarf for she takes the scarf at one point, like, fine, I'll use it because she's super cold. In any case, the moment she puts it on, soon after she's washed over in this very warm light. And I think the timing of that and the dramatic tension that was building at that moment was also very significant. And thinking back on it after having a bit of a discussion with a friend post watching the film, I think there's quite a lot loaded in that one moment too. And of course, all the bright light and the super saturated colors from the strip club or either from the parties are obviously inherently super exciting and potent. But I think the moments that really stood out the most for me, not just in terms of the cinematography, but also of the narrative significance, are these moments that had very washed out colors. I would really label them as these like white and gray, cool color palette colors. There's some really profound moments that stick out in my mind quite vividly from those eras, much more so than the super vibrant and hot orange or purple. Now, obviously, I'm not going to spoil anything around the ending, but I do want to kind of comment about my sentiments around it because there's a lot going on here. In fact, while I was experiencing it for the first time, I wasn't sure how to feel about it. There's a lot of really complicated and conflicting emotions all rolled into one in this scene. I mean, this is something the film has been doing previously, but here it's going to a whole nother level. And I think there's a lot of elements of the characters' backstories where we don't necessarily have all the answers. We have bits and pieces of the puzzles here and there, and I think it's going to take a bit of effort on our part to kind of talk about it, discuss, and make those connections, and I think they are there to be made. And indeed, after discussing with my friend after having seen the film, there's some really interesting revelations that we made. So the fact that the film leaves quite a few question marks left for us to just wrestle with, I think actually speaks to the quality of the filmmaking here, because it makes me interact with the film on a much deeper level, and I think that's a quality that is reserved to only the best dramas out there. So I don't sing that praise lightly. But as much as I am praising this film, there is one element that I have to talk shit about over here, and perhaps I am uniquely placed here to talk about this because I'm a game developer. For those moments where Vanya was playing video games, I call absolute bullshit. Looking at the way this guy's holding his controller, you would think he never played a game in his entire life. Who holds the controller like this and is pressing, during a shooter game, mind you, pressing the face buttons like this? Yeah, that moment was like nails on a chalkboard for me. Me and my coworker, both of us developers, we were just losing our mind like, are you kidding me? Anyways, that aside, this was a truly terrific film. It was 2 hours and 20 minutes in length, and honestly, it just flew by in no time. Not only was this a lot of fun, hilarious, and super chaotic experience, it was also very thought-provoking in some really surprising ways. I think it has the potential to get under a lot of people's skin. So I'd say this is a solid 9 out of 10. The more I think about this film, the more I appreciate it, and I feel like it's only going to grow on me with time and further discussions. Every now and then, films that get super hyped actually live up to, and in many ways surpass that hype. Yeah, this was excellent, and I really do have to check out those other Sean Baker projects, starting with the Florida project. In any case, with all that being said, wishing you and your loved ones nothing but the best. Take care and talk to you soon.